Good morning, everyone. Do you think we're ready to start, Stephen?
I don't know if we have a quorum yet. I only see you and Eleanor so far.
And you, so three.
So let's give people a few minutes to trickle in.
Okay.
Yeah, Danny's here, so that's a quorum.
Okay, ready? Good morning. I would like to call the Wednesday, October 20th DAC meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Haley Dellery, present. Stephen Kroll.
Hi.
Danny McElmurray.
I'm here.
Eleanor Burke.
Present.
Miguel Viteri. Absent. Louis Haywood. Absent. Lindsay Glatz. Absent. The public comment form link is available at nola.gov/CPC. It will be available until the end of the 5-minute recess, after which public comments will be read into the record as part of the consideration of dockets. At this time, would the committee make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from the August 25th DAC meeting?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
A second by Stephen.
Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways and a second by City Planning. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. One item on today's agenda has been withdrawn, item number 6 for design review docket 10921 for a property at 5757 Magazine Street has been withdrawn. We will begin with the presentation of dockets. The second item on today's agenda is the consideration of design review 10321 for a property at 1950 St. Bernard Avenue. We have Peter Priola signed up to speak on behalf of the application, and Joseph is the CPC staff member assigned to this case. As a reminder, following staff presentation, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present.
Good morning, y'all. This is a request or design review for a residential care facility, subclassified as a independent assisted facility in the St. Bernard. It's in an HUB1 district in the RD2 residential district, diversity overlay and EC enhancement overlay, and the SBA St. Bernard Avenue. And that'll come up later. So this is the site next to the Corpus Christi Community Church and Community Center and the non-member library. We're proposing a 4-story building with 63 units. Thankfully, our colleagues at Safety and Permits kind of corresponded with them and to the applicant. By the time they submitted to us, has kind of brought the project into compliance with setbacks, bulk and yard requirements, and building design standards, though, of course, I'm still in the process of verifying all those. Their parking, as you know, is also, the vehicular parking is limited, so generally residential independent assisted facilities are allotted one dwelling parking space per dwelling unit. In this case, the SBA St. Bernard District Overlay alleviates that and allows them a quarter a parking space per dwelling unit, which results in a requirement of 16 spaces, plus an office required space for office spaces, 17, which they have on site. So I think that ends staff.
Thank you, Joseph. Peter, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Yeah, this is Miles with the applicant. Also, Ray Zabala with P is also here from the architecture side as well. As noted, is independent living facility with senior housing, a partner between Liberty Bank and a group of athletes that good and do well. And this is a project that is designed to fill a need of quality senior housing in the city, in this portion specifically. There's several pieces of the project that have been in process for some time, and we're getting close to the finish line. We'll be able to break ground at this get the project going. I'll do now is I'll pass quickly to Ray if he has any he wants to say from the architecture side, but beyond that, I think we're here to questions and to respond.
Yeah, we have nothing. I apologize. Sorry, we have an issue now. Is that better?
No?
It is kind of cool though.
One of the things is an exterior wall material.
While we're waiting for them to figure out their technical difficulties, I will say that Parkways has reviewed a revised landscape plan, and I believe we've already approved it. So that would just be part of our recommendation on the review process, is to use the plan that has already been approved by Parkways.
Okay, thanks, Danny. And also, I'm going to place in the meeting chat the phone number if y'all would like to call into the meeting. It's also in the Outlook invitation.
They're getting set up. Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments?
I have some comments. Can we go to the rendering? I think it's maybe not the rendering, maybe the drawing, the line drawing, the rendering. Right, that one. I think it's great how the building is addressing the corner with the signage and has the entry sort of delineated at that location. I think the massing is fine for the site, and the window to wall ratio is nice. I am concerned about the materiality of the building. It seems like it's overly complicated. I think the design would be stronger if perhaps the brick went used the entirety of the building, so that you had a brick and metal composition rather than brick, hardy siding, and metal. It just seems like there's a lot of different moves going on that aren't necessarily working together.
Hi, are we unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, I apologize sincerely for that. We're going to let Pete go ahead and speak here.
Well, I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if I came through at the time. Of those technical. A lot of the design features of the building, the use of
I can't
materials.
really hear them.
was-
Anyone else hear them?
No,
lot
excuse
of-
me, it's quite
We
low.
can't hear you.
We can hear you, but it's quite low.
Okay, I'm trying to speak up. A lot of the use of materials was part of the directive that we had with the Louisiana Housing Corporation, who, their qualified allocation plan limited or suggested certain quantities of materials on the facade. And so that's why the brick is used on just the first 3 floors and not the top floor. And we can increase the amount of brick, that's no problem, if that's what y'all would like us to do. I think that's what I understood someone saying just a minute ago. Hello?
So you're saying you can bring the brick up to the 4th floor?
Yeah, we can, if that's what you all would like us to do.
I think it would help because that horizontal banding is making the building look wider and more massive than it is. So that material change just seems very awkward at that location and is reinforcing the horizontality of the building, which I don't think is helping. And it's also, I think, an odd mix of materials. So I think the brick and metal would be, it would be just a cleaner, more handsome, more elegant design.
Okay. Do that.
Okay, we kind of went out of order and did you have any more of a presentation to do? Or was that all of the comments that y'all had?
We feel fairly, we've abided by the design guidelines and the code requirements. There's nothing additional that we would like to add.
Okay,
More
thank
here
you.
to your input and your comments.
Okay. Are there any other committee comments or questions? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Item number 3, design review docket 10521 for a property at 2801 General de Gaulle. We have Michael Griffin signed up to speak on behalf of the application, and Rachel is the CPC staff member.
This design review is for a new health clinic in a C1 general commercial district. The proposed health clinic consists of a single-story structure with 20,000 square feet of area. Within the health clinic is an urgent care clinic, a diagnostic imaging television center. These apartments will house a total of 24 exam rooms, 3 large procedure and exam rooms, 2 behavioral health and counseling rooms, retail pharmacy lab, bio-waste, meeting community space, and back-of-house support spaces. The applicant provided an updated site plan and survey right before this meeting, and I haven't had a chance to review it. But with the time I will to spend with the previously submitted plans, I have the following comments. There are, from what I can tell, many lots that make up the property that will need to be consolidated into one lot of record. The applicant is proposing a drive-through as part of the pharmacy. However, in the C1 district, drive-throughs are not a permitted use. There is a landscape plan that was submitted, but it's not stamped by a Louisiana landscape architect, and it's missing many details. We'll need approval from DPW for curb cuts and Department of Parks and Parkways for the trees in the right-of-way. We need more information concerning the loading space. We need compliance with the 20% of the permeable open space requirement in the C1 district. And there's currently, the parking spaces are under review. Right now, the applicant is proposing 81 parking spaces, but staff consulted the zoning administrator who stated that the back of house support and offices are considered ancillary uses and wouldn't need to be included in the required parking amount. But all of the different exam rooms would be included, which include the counseling rooms, procedure rooms, ultrasound rooms, x-ray rooms, et cetera. If the pharmacy is accessory to the clinic, it wouldn't count, but if it's open to the public, then it would count, and additional parking spaces would be needed. The plans indicate there is an area for bicycle parking, but it doesn't state how many bicycle parking spaces are needed. And we'll also need compliance with the screen requirements. And again, this is just a cursory overview, and more items will be needed as a more in-depth review takes place. That concludes the staff's presentation.
Thank you, Rachel. Michael, you now have 10 minutes.
Hi, this is Joe O'Sullivan. Michael is having Frank Foligno, his Chief Operating Officer, call in to speak, but he is having technical difficulties. So is it okay if we give him a minute to dial in?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
While we're waiting for staff, and I might have missed this in the staff presentation, does this meet zoning in terms of location on the site?
In terms of setbacks?
Well, does it need to be located on the corner since it's a corner?
I think in the C1 district, it is contingent on adjacent properties with a maximum of 20 feet. And right now it's showing that it's 20 feet from General de Gaulle. But I haven't looked into depth into the setbacks.
Then also, does it need to have the entrance on the address that it's given, so that it should have an entry on General de Gaulle? Another requirement?
I think it is a requirement.
Yes.
Good
This
morning.
is David.
This is,
Oh, go ahead, Frank. I was going to interject there. This is
Hey,
David
David.
Davis. I'm the project manager for this project. We do have an entrance off of General de Gaulle that has the building signage, so that does meet the requirement for an entrance off of the main thoroughfare. Frank, you can continue.
oh, good morning all. Frank Foligno representing the owner, DePaul Community Health Centers. I've been in the community over 150 years, and we're happy to expand our footprint on the West Bank. And David Davis from Page Architects will proceed with our presentation and respond to the questions and answers. And thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay, so as noted, there are a few items to discuss that we were that questions and concerns on, and some of those have been provided and met with our updated site plan to show the bicycle spaces, the 20% permeable open space, the 61 parking spaces to meet the zoning as is without the additional parking spaces per the exam rooms that could be included into that parking space requirement. That's something that Rachel and I were kind of looking at to see if we could get additional parking spaces. But right now we are meeting the minimum zoning requirement based on the count of exam rooms that we have now.
Okay, does that conclude the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, all righty, thank you. Are there any other comments from the committee? While we were on hold, I did verify that properties in the C1 district, the building design standards require the primary entrance to be oriented to the corner.
Yeah, this is Stephen from City Planning. I think that sort of captures the issue, is that this is really designed towards the parking lot rather than General de Gaulle, which is the corridor. And all of the design standards are really, getting to the the design requirement that the building really needs to face the corridor and not interior parking areas. So I think, that's something that's going to be a big part of our review. I think that, the tower emphasizes the side, the parking lot emphasizes the side. You may have an entrance on General de Gaulle, but everything about the design is turned inward, which is going to be problematic in the substance of our regulations.
Okay.
And this is for both of y'all. Rachel and David, I guess. But I don't see a landscape plan in the package at all. I see renderings, but as you said, Rachel, Parks and Parkways will need to look at this long before. I appreciate y'all bringing this. It's kind of early in the process, I think. And this is a 30% set that we're looking at.
That's correct. And we working with the civil landscape engineer to provide updated and comprehensive landscape plan. And Jenny Snape is here from Bator Engineering, and she is our civil and landscape engineer.
There's no such thing as a landscape engineer. It has to be a landscape architect.
Landscape architect, yes.
Jenny knows that.
Yeah. And our landscape architect has put together a preliminary plan. Again, we've been tweaking the site plan, so we'll finalize that once we finalize the site plan. But we have submitted a drawing, I think, after this that's showing on the screen that shows at least the right-of-way plantings.
Okay. Is that Andrew is your landscape architect?
Yes, yeah, Andrew. Mm-hmm.
If y'all want to send it over, I'm more than happy to look at it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any more comments from the staff?
I will say, I'm just going to jump in. I mean, I don't think I appreciate the attention to detail that you already have at this stage of the design. I think even with your primary entrance in the tower kind of moved to the corner, I don't think it's going to change that look that you've got. And, I appreciate the attention that you've already given to the detail.
And then I guess the question I would have as far as the materiality, is that something that would meet the requirements of this region?
Okay.
Or is that I'm not sure what's being asked.
Well, asking as far as the materials, just wanted to make sure that the materials that we are using are adequate and are kind of mimic the area surrounding this project. I'm going to make sure that we're not using anything that kind of stands out or something that wouldn't be approved.
Yeah, so in terms of the requirements, you can't use EFIS, you can't use vinyl. You're sort of open from that point. I think, look to, certainly General de Gaulle has varied context, but
yeah,
look to context and just try and be consistent with that, and you'll be fine on materials.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other committee comments or questions, we will return to this item after the recess. And now we'll move on to item number 4, zoning docket 8821 for a property at 3421 South Claiborne Avenue. We have Louis Kong signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and Aspen is the CPC planner.
Yeah, so this is for a fast food restaurant that requires a conditional use because it's in the HUC overlay. So that's what's triggering it to go to City Planning Commission. It's scheduled for the November 9th public hearing. And just looking at the design of it, it looks like it has an excessive front yard setback. The front yard setback in this district cannot be greater than 20 feet. It's definitely over 20 feet. And the setback needs to be established based on the neighboring properties. So that needs to be checked with safety and permits as to how large the setback can be. And also no parking can be between the front facade of the building and the street. So the parking would have to be set back a little behind the building or on the side of the building. So the building is definitely going to have to change in this design. There's also just trash enclosures need to be included with a 7-foot opaque fence. And also, it doesn't look like there's enough permeability. There is a landscaping plan that's not, it doesn't look like it's a complete landscape plan by a landscape architect, but we'll need to see permeability on this as well. And that's it so far.
Thank you, Espen. Lewis, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Hi, can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can see and hear you. Mhm.
Oh, hi. Okay, the lot is very narrow. It's only 45 foot long. So it is really hard to put the parking behind the building instead of in front. There's really no room to put a driveway on the side of the building. And also, if you look at the context of this site, on the right side is an apartment building. The parking is in front of it. And then on the left side, the driveway and parking is also in front of the building. And then you look across the street, more of the building have parking spaces in front of it. And then if you look at the block, on the left side to it, parking are also in front. Like most of the lots are narrow in that area, or other development have parking in front of it. I know we are pushing the building really further back because we try to get 4 parking spaces for the business. I guess we can compromise by having maybe give up 1 parking spaces and move the building a little bit closer to the front. We try to make the building look residential as possible. That is about it. Hoping to get all your feedback on the design. Thank you so much.
Louis, this is Stephen from City Planning.
Hey, Stephen.
You're gonna need a variance for that setback. I can tell you that at staff level, we're not gonna support that. It can't meet the criteria for variances because you've got basically a blank slate. You know, yes, there is parking across the street, and on the apartment complex, those spaces cross the sidewalk. They're not really what I don't think anyone thinks is a good design at this point. So it's not what the zoning regulations are going for. The zoning regulations are trying to bring buildings to the street, have walkable environments. And so really to do something different than what exists on that block of Claiborne. So context is not really something that's, I think, helpful to the argument, at least from our perspective. So you have a tension between the parking requirement and the setback requirement. You know, you can either seek a variance of the parking requirement, you can narrow the building to put parking in the back, but just fair warning that our reports almost certainly going to have the requirement that the building be brought to the street, and will probably recommend a variance of the parking requirement, which is only 3 spaces as part of that. And then you can, get those 3 spaces in terms of curbside space that would otherwise not be present because of the curb here.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the setbacks, you can come in on your interior setbacks because you're not abutting residential on the sides, it's just in your rear.
Okay.
Louis, what's driving the shape of your building? Because it's an open floor plan, it looks like. So is this a net? Are you trying to just make a white box that is available for a fast food restaurant, or is this just a white box period?
It's just a white box available for restaurant or other kind of rental.
But where's the kitchen?
They are leasing it out. So depend on who lease it and however they want to lay out the interior spaces.
So the shape doesn't have to be a square if you wanted to make the shape of the building something different and not residential, because I mean, residential doesn't necessarily belong on Claiborne Avenue.
Right.
So I mean, yeah. I think that's if you're having to change it to meet the setbacks and the driveway issue and the parking in the back, I think you're going to find that a much more modern kind of commercial looking building is going to be a lot easier, and that'll help kind of separate your building out into spaces that are clearly for kitchen and clearly for customers.
Yes. Okay, understand.
Not to mention you need a real landscape plan.
Yes. Yes.
And Stephen or Aspen, doesn't this require a street tree or at least one or two street trees? Since it's a commercial zone?
I think so. It's not in like an institutional campus, so
It's a commercial district.
Yeah, I think this, I'll have to double check, Danny.
It's
but I
also
think
part
this
of
is
the.
one of, this is, so some commercial districts require street trees, some don't. It kind of depends on the intensity of the district. I think this is one that does. And so we'll certainly include that with our recommendation. It does.
It's part of that enhancement corridor that we've required it in all the other ones. That's why we've required it for all the other commercial establishments along South Claiborne.
Right.
I think we are good. I mean, we just want to get some feedback from everybody, for the owners, so he have some direction to know how to develop this this piece of land.
Sorry, Lewis, I was just confirming, yes, Danny, this would require street trees, parkway trees. And I'm sorry I interrupted, Lewis, but this is time for committee discussion or comments. Is there any other comments from the committee or questions for Lewis? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to the last item of today's agenda, item number 5. This is the reconsideration of design review docket 110-21. For a property at 1150 Magazine Street.
Haley, I thought this was removed from the agenda.
We removed item number 6, which was a different property.
Oh, okay.
At 5757 Magazine. But this one is the open air addition to the existing 2-story warehouse, and that's occupied by Merchant House, and we're reviewing it because it's in a CPC overlay. I'll quickly go over the comments from the last DAC meeting, and then Megan can talk about how those issues have been addressed. The first one was recess covered openings should be minimized because it attracts people to sleep under. HDLC recommended that the addition footprint be shifted towards the corner because it was set back. Since then, the applicant has spoken with HDLC, and it seems as though that comment has been removed. CPC had recommended adding a trellis or a column so that the addition would align with the existing warehouse. The applicant had proposed slight modifications to the existing warehouse, and the committee had kind of recommended some ways to better integrate the addition by adding more modifications to the existing warehouse. And another comment was to add color to the warehouse facade. And finally, we had a discussion about the ramping condition in the public sidewalk. The applicant is currently working to provide a letter from the adjacent property owner to safety and permits so that this can move forward. Okay, Megan, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Megan, you're muted.
Stephen, is this a situation where we have to ask her if she would like to be unmuted?
That's what I'm trying to do. It's not responding when I click ask unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hi, Megan. We can hear you.
Hi. Sorry about that. My computer actually said that it was having trouble connecting with audio, so I just called in from my phone. 1 second. Okay. Hopefully that doesn't create any sound concerns. Okay, so yeah, just to go in order, I'll start by focusing on the addition footprint. So we did reach out to Eleanor directly after our last meeting, which was in July, and just to address mainly the setback, because I think that was the most impactful comment that we received, and just provided a list of kind of bullet points of why we had set the addition back. Primarily, it's related to the amount of utilities and kind of oddities that are happening on that corner, with traffic lights, you know, power poles, that sort of thing. But also we made the argument that we're permitted to set the addition back based off of zoning guidelines that allow you to use the average of the neighboring properties. And obviously the 1152 property is set at the street, but the consignment shop that is the next property down is set significantly back. And so that actually puts us in the range of what would be a permitted setback. And another logic for us was just, in our experience, this is not a tax credit qualifying project, but in general, when we're working with a historic building, it's actually recommended to differentiate the front facade of any addition to historic structures. So those were all of the reasons why initially we decided to set the addition back. And I think those bullet points helped alleviate at least HGLC's concerns about the addition itself. Regarding the other comments that we received about just tying in architecturally with the existing building, one of the modifications that we've made since our last hearing was to fit out the storefront intervention at the overhead door of the existing warehouse building with a more historic looking storefront in a style that matches what we're doing at the open air addition. And then regarding color, I think what we had presented prior was actually inaccurate. We were just using wireframe 3D views of the buildings at that time. And I'm actually not sure if there is true jurisdiction over what paint colors they ultimately select, but the building itself is actually painted a darker kind of teal blue color at the moment. And so we updated the renderings to just show that there wouldn't be such a stark contrast, at least in the color between the addition and the existing building. Ultimately, they'll probably be painted the same color, and I would assume it would be in line with what is there now, which is a darker color. Regarding the sidewalk condition, we've actually had quite a bit of correspondence with DPW and Parks and Parkways. When we actually got existing grade elevations for the sidewalk, they were more favorable than what we were assuming. And so we're able to ramp up the 8 or so inches of increase to meet that slab elevation of 1152 without impacting the neighbor's properties. And as far as I know, I think we're on the right track with getting DPW approvals and Parks and Parkway approvals for the actual sidewalk conditions. And then the last thing I'll mention is just street tree improvements along Calliope, which Danny had made some recommendations for what to do with the existing tree wells that are there now. And we're not following those recommendations to the T, but we are showing that we would at least make the existing tree wells compliant according to zoning standards and put new trees in those locations.
So yeah, before we talk about architecture, I do want to touch on that point because I would like CPC staff to verify that if does this project trigger the need to provide the a required quantity of street trees?
No,
It does not. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Haley.
Just want to make sure because we'd asked them to at least make sure that they replace the two that are missing on Palio. So.
Okay, thanks, Megan. That was a good presentation, and thanks for your comment, Danny. Are there any other comments for this item? Okay, this concludes the presentation of dockets. The committee will now recess for 5 minutes. Consideration of dockets, including public comments, will begin at 10:47. Hello, the digital public comment form link is now closed. We will begin with the consideration of dockets. We did not receive any public comment. So we will begin with item number 2, design review docket 10321 for the property at 1950 St. Bernard Avenue. At this time, is the committee ready to make a motion?
Quickly, for the motion, did want to chime in regarding one comment that was made for the going all the way up. We did have a chance to take a look over the and we prefer to leave it as is, and I'll let the architect speak to this more, but considering that there's a sort of naturally affordable senior housing project, any added cost, something that we should really with great pause.
May I ask the committee if they would like to consider these comments?
I understand the cost implications. I guess my feeling would be that then perhaps you could eliminate the vertical metal element that's happening on the, I believe, South Johnson side elevation. I mean, that's a complicated piece of design that's probably adding cost to your project. And so maybe that could be eliminated and the base be turned to hardy plank. So that, you don't have 3 different materials going on, you only have 2, and the project is simplified, and perhaps that would give you some cost reduction as well by eliminating that vertical metal element.
The design team admitted that they're currently muted. I think they wanted to chime in. The 504-569-303.
Are they unable to unmute themselves?
We're unmuted now. This is Pete Friel. We've gone through a value engineering exercise with the contractor for the past few months. And part of what we were doing by introducing the hardy plank on the upper floor was to get the project into budget. We did at one time have the brick going all the way up, and we reduced it in order to get it into budget and then still follow the guidelines of the QAP, which requires 30% of the facade to be masonry. Now, the back of the building is lap siding also. So a certain amount of taking that back material and wrapping it around to the front was desired. If you are objecting to the hardy plank at the top, we could take it off the St. Bernard Avenue facade and leave it on the North Johnson Avenue facade, but turn the corner with it and terminate the brick at the vertical stair. So that sort of breaks up the facade there. So we can change materials there and then still allow the rear material to kind of wrap around on one of the facades that face the street. So that's another approach that we could see, if it's okay, if you all feel comfortable with that.
And part of that, I think, because the cost implications on St. Bernard are a little less, because that's already additional considerations on the facade for sound dampening and the brick and so the implications based on that are less St. Bernard than they are on the other facades.
Yeah, we have to provide certain acoustical barriers between us and the surrounding neighborhood, so that the noise from St. Bernard Avenue facade doesn't penetrate the building walls. And we had to increase the thickness of the wall on the 4th floor because of the lack of masonry. So the masonry actually helps us there acoustically, and sort of offsets the cost of additional layers of sheet rock and sheathing. So there's some advantage there for us, cost standpoint too.
However, that additional sheetrock and sheathing for the acoustic wasn't required on the North Johnson side. So if we were to bring the brick all the way up on both sides, there would be cost implications associated there, which is why we're suggesting if we bring it up on the St. Bernard and we wrap that corner and stop it at the vertical element, there would be minimal cost implications there, and it would also achieve the initial comment of bringing the brick up. And as Pete suggested, with the desire to wrap the rear material around, we're suggesting leaving those 3 or 4 bays down North Johnson as is, minimize any cost implications to the owner, and possibly and hopefully meet any kind of the design comments.
I think there's a concern with the vertical metal siding on the North Johnson side. Isn't that what you were referring to, Eleanor?
Well, I guess what I was saying is, you know, if we're trying to bring costs down, the metal vertical element that they've introduced on the South Johnson side, which you know, I don't think is great, but I am happy to live with it. But that maybe that element could be removed, and that could be a cost savings that would allow for the brick to be able to go all the way up to the 4th floor. And maybe that would help simplify the building and keep it from being sort of a hodgepodge of several different materials.
Yeah, I kind of think the vertical metal span of 4 floors on the North Johnson is problematic, and maybe it could streamline without that element included. Streamline costs and design. That was the intent of the comment, to consider that. Pete, any?
The metal panel is actually a lower cost point than the brick, but eliminating that metal panel and going back with brick would serve the opposite as the suggested.
And
What's the design intent?
Leaving that vertical metal object there also helps take the ground floor and bring it up into the upper floors of the building with materials on the ground floor. And it also allows us a termination place for a 4th story of brick to terminate at that point.
There's the elevator core and the end of the main corridor as well. If at all possible, we would prefer to leave that vertical metal element, and if bringing the brick up achieves the aesthetic desire of the committee, we're happy to make that adjustment.
And I guess I'd add maybe at a point where we've gotten, gotten some comment, and then maybe the building as is, but with brick St. Bernard with the corner to that metal element, may satisfy the fundamental needs of all parties and allow us to from there.
Okay, I'm glad that we had a chance to revisit that. At this time, is the committee ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, provided they bring the brick to the 4th floor.
I'll
Do we have
second
a
that.
second? A second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. The third item on today's agenda is design review docket 10521 for the clinic at 2801 General de Gaulle. at
Valerie,
this time.
can we get a clarification on the brick? I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we get a clarification? Is that on both facades, all brick, or was the committee okay with just bringing up at the St. Bernard and wrapping the corner?
It was on both.
I don't know that we were talking about both because you can't wrap it around the other side. We were talking about the St. Bernard side, I thought.
Eleanor, you made the motion. Would you like to clarify?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Haley.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all are unable to hear me. They were wondering if they had to wrap the brick on the St. Bernard side only or both sides. What is the recommendation?
I was recommending both sides.
Okay, thank you.
Eleanor, does that mean the full length of the South Johnson side?
Yes, that's my intention.
What happens on the back sides? Because when you scroll down or when you look at the those facades, I don't know that it's not going to do what you think it does. I don't think.
Backside is the hardy siding on the upper 3 levels.
And stucco on the first level.
Yeah, it's sheet like what, A321, which is number 14. Go to 13 and 14.
So the top drawing is the side that faces the library?
Yep.
Yes. So you can see that to the left of the top drawing is the rear parking lot area. You see the stucco on the first floor, the hardy on the top 3 floors. The bottom drawing is the other side of the parking lot where you see that's hardy on the top 3 and stucco on the bottom floor. Those are the 2 elevations that face the parking lot.
So I think that that's going to be an issue with the whole, how do you actually wrap it around and where do you stop? If you've got it where you can stop at 2 vertical elements, then I think that's a great stopping point. But if you're trying to wrap it around, if you go to the sheet above that one, page 13.
I think that it could stop, after a little bit of a return.
Yeah, the 2 returns on either side hit vertical elements. So it would be St. Bernard and then a return on North Johnson and what is that, North Freer? The side that faces the library. Yeah. Would that work, Eleanor?
In that middle, we would stop it after that first bay where it hits that vertical metal element. The entire St. Bernard and that wrapping of the corner would be brick all the way up.
And then again, when you hit that North Freer, if you go to the next sheet on the screen there, and then wrap that corner right there at the top right. Am I reading that correctly?
My motion was to to extend the brick all the way to the 4th floor on the St. Bernard and South Johnson elevations. So that's the motion I have on the floor. I can't recall if it was seconded.
It was by Capital Projects, and then we all voted on it, and then the applicant asked for a little clarification, and now we've gone into this discussion. Do you want to make a second motion?
And did I understand that, Danny, meant to that these, and correct me if I'm, that a slight to that, to stop it at that vertical bay and all the way might work. It can be flow from material to material, considering.
Miles, you have the crappiest microphone possible.
Do
It
I?
cuts out every other word. So if we get lit, yeah, that's what we get.
I'll just have to say, if Joseph, you're the CPC staff member for this, I believe that you have, do you have any questions about what we've discussed so far? And if not, then you can work with the applicant to convey what we had discussed. We have already made one motion and it passed, but due to this follow-up conversation, does the committee have any desire to amend that and make another motion?
Can they just work with Eleanor and figure out what they need to do?
Okay, so would the motion be
Yeah,
to
and-
extend the brick on the two sides that face the street and get administrative approval from HDLC? Does that work for everyone?
Is
I'm sorry, Miles. The time for discussion has ended and we're going to wrap up this item. And from there, you would be able to work with Joseph. Is the committee comfortable with that direction?
I am, and Joseph, just a reminder that there is a landscape plan that's approved by Parkways already.
Okay, great, thank you. So at this time, is the committee ready to make a motion on item number 3, design review docket 10521 for the clinic at 2801 General de Gaulle?
Make a motion that the applicant relocate the main entry as required by zoning to face General de Gaulle and provide updated site and landscape plans for Parkway's review and approval.
Danny, can I suggest an amendment? The
Certainly.
zoning district doesn't allow drive-throughs, so that's going to need to be eliminated. There's also a number of other zoning issues they need to work through, parking requirements, bike parking requirements.
Yep.
So just kind of number one, to eliminate the drive-through, and then just work with Rachel and kind of make sure they're looking at all their zoning requirements and bring it into compliance.
All of that, it's fine. That's kind of what I meant by revised site plan, because I knew that she'd already mentioned that the drive-through was not allowed. So if there is some kind of variance pursued, then that would have to go through a different process anyway.
Yeah, and just for the record, that's not something you could get a variance on. It's just something that can't be done at this location. So they just need to consider that aspect.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my second. Sorry for being very.
Okay, Rachel, have you captured all of those provisos?
I think I got it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Now we're moving on to item number 4, zoning docket 8821 for the fast food restaurant at 3421 South Claiborne Avenue.
Haley, yeah, so Danny, for this one, we're on a accelerated timetable because it's something that has to go to council and therefore can't really defer it while hitting our deadlines.
So I make a motion to deny, because there's no way, this doesn't meet any of the requirements that it needs to meet.
We have a motion by Parks and Parkways for denial. Do we have a second?
A second.
A second by HDLC.
Can
sorry,
I just,
Stephen.
Haley, before you call a comment, just since this is going to council and I don't know if it'll get approved or not, but I just want to make very clear to Lewis that the things that are driving the denial are the fact that the building isn't at the front property line. The parking's not either on the street, meaning like parallel parking along the street or in back as it should be. And given that it's an empty site, there's an ability to narrow the building and meet all of these requirements. So regardless of the outcome of this, and I just, these are things that are gonna have to be worked through should this be approved by council.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So we have a motion for denial by Parks and Parkways and a second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. The final item on today's agenda is item number 5, the reconsideration of design review docket 11021 for 1150 Magazine Street.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the final plans being submitted for review and approval to DPW and Parkways. All right, we're just looking at 1150, right? Not 1152?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah.
Well, vice versa, Danny, 1152, not 50.
Pardon?
I thought, I
that's
misunderstood
correct.
what you said. We're looking at, 1152 only, not 1150.
No, we're looking at 1150.
We're looking
Right.
at the corner property.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, the
sorry.
plans are very confusing because they include 1152, but we should only be looking at the 1150 magazine edition.
That's correct.
Okay. I apologize. I misunderstood. I was looking at the label.
Yeah, no, they just need to make sure that we, the final version, since they do have grading now, and they've expanded the tree wells, so the plans need to go to DPW and to Parkways for review and approval prior to permitting for 1150.
Okay, great. We have a motion by Parks and Parkways for approval subject to final plans being reviewed at an administrative level by DPW and Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
Second by CPC.
Okay, thanks. And CP seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Great. And the motion passes. That concludes our meeting for October. Thank you, everyone, and see you in November.